In this next video, we're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into the factory data. Now, nothing too crazy, we'll just kind of be testing the waters. But I do want to show you how we can add new moldings to our library. Now, on a lot of residential jobs, designers or architects are calling out a specific profile to be used on their job, and to make sure that we're providing them what they're asking for, we need to know how to add that to our database. Now, this is going to require us going into the Database Explorer and into Workbook Designer. Just remember, anytime making changes to your template, it's always a good idea to make that backup first. All right, and now for the next lesson in Toolbox. Now, Toolbox does offer quite a bit of different moldings that you can use for your project. You go into Draw Room Components, and then under the Moldings drop-down list, we have all these different moldings that can be used. Baseboard, crown molding, casing. But if there's one that's being called out by your customer that's not in this list, then we have to figure out how to add it on our own. Now, crown molding in particular does work two different ways. You go into your construction options, you have this prompt on our upper and tall cabinets to add crown molding. And that works the same way as any other subassembly inside of that product. You can go to Modify Subassemblies and Show Subassembly Prompts, and this will allow us to change which type of molding that we're using. So along with adding this crown molding to our Toolbox database, we also need to make a couple AutoCAD drawing files. Now, we could start from scratch with a new drawing that we saved to our common microvellum data. That would be inside of this current configuration and inside of the graphics folder. Now, because we already have a lot of drawings in here, it's going to be a lot easier if we just use something that's existing. So we're going to go into our moldings and to our profiles folder, copy some drawings, make some edits, and then save them back with a unique name. I'm going to open up these drawing files through the AutoCAD ribbon here. And just make sure that you're selecting under the correct configuration, graphics, and now to our moldings. And then scroll down and find the CM01 molding. Now, if you are doing this without modifying something that's already existing, just make sure that you're drawing them with the correct units inside of that DWG file. The drawing units for moldings are set up to be millimeters, and the drawing units for profiles are set up in inches. And also just make a note of that 0, insertion point. Make sure that the bottom of your crown molding is at 0, 0, 0. All right, now let's make some edits. So this doesn't have to be anything too dramatic. We're just trying to make something a little bit different here so we can have this redraw and show up in the project. So we'll just trim up a couple lines here and maybe give this a little bulge. So now we clearly have a different molding. Now, before we save this, we want to make sure that this is a joined polyline, so we're going to use our PE edit command and join everything together. Now we have one continuous joined polyline. Save this back to the moldings folder. Just going to type in new, so we do have a unique name. Now I am going to copy this with the base point so I can save it to my clipboard and paste it into the profile drawing. Now when we open up our profile drawings, you'll see what I'm talking about with the units being different than our molding drawings. I'm going to pick on that same CM01 molding, and there's the profile. So different than our actual molding drawing, the profile is showing like the block of wood basically with the cutout of the molding or the negative space. So I'm just going to paste in that new molding drawing that we created, and there you can see the difference between those two drawing files. So now because we're in inches, we need to scale this to the correct size. So we'll just use our SC command and go through the steps of doing that. Now we're just going to reference this long length of the crown and then select these 2 points here to make the new length. Now also with the profiles, they're rotated 90 degrees, so you want to make sure that that's correct. This for the cabinet here, laying down on its back, this is the crown molding. Just want to make sure that we have that rotated correctly before we save this. And now just moving that into position, we can delete the object of the old crown molding and start drawing in a new polyline around it. This doesn't have to be exact because we are going to join this with that crown molding profile. Just trim up these lines here. And make sure that we're coming off perpendicular and trim up the rest of those lines. And now last step, to make sure that this is one joined polyline, use our PE edit command again. And now they've been joined. Just like the molding, we're going to want to save this profile. So go to the Profiles folder. Also give it the same name, new, of course, without the underscore molding. We want to save that. Now, one last thing before we go back into our Toolbox database and go into our Workbook Designer, when we want to go to Browse to Microvellum Data, under the Graphics folder, Moldings, let's find our CM01 new molding. So there it is, and you'll notice here inside of this folder that all those moldings have a JPEG file. For this to show up in our room components list, we do need to make sure that we have a JPEG file matching this new molding name. So we can cheat and just copy this one, and as long as it shares that same name with the new molding we just created, then the room components will work the right way. And now into Workbook Designer. So we're going to start off with the room components. We're going to go to Database Explorer for that. Since the room components don't have the same G workbook as the rest of our products in our library, this is the way to access that workbook. Go to Room Components and open up our G workbook. As you scroll over to the right, you'll see the lookup table of all the different moldings that we have available for us to use. We're just going to insert a new row. We'll copy this one and just make those name changes. The Y offset is just the offset from its insertion point. Make sure we save that. Now we're going to do the other change inside of just the project just to make sure everything works properly. If it does, then we can do this at the template level to that G workbook. So here we're going to go into the G workbook for our products. This is also a lookup table. Lookup table molding profiles. And we're going to do the same thing that we did with our room components. Inserting a new row. And pasting this one above with the new name. Now before we close out of this and save the changes, I do want to go into our factory workbook because we need to go and make a change to our list options. Crown molding options is where we want to go to make this change, and just select the correct region that you're in. I'm in the US region, so I'm going to double click inside of this cell to start editing. Make sure that you keep that pipe symbol in there, that this one has its new name. And now let's save these changes. Let's restart Toolbox and we'll come back into this drawing and make sure everything's working the right way. So I just restarted Toolbox. We're back inside of this drawing. Let's go into our subassembly prompts and change this crown molding for this product. So if we did everything correctly, we should see this new CM01 new molding option. We'll hit OK and let this redraw with its new profile. There you can see we have that new profile. So everything is coming in correctly from that drawing file. Now let's double check to make sure that it's working the right way when we add it as a room component to this project. Just scrolling down, making sure that we do have this in our list, and there it is. And we'll give it a height above floor at 105.5. And let's double check that. There's our new room component. So that's the process of adding a new molding to our database and using it inside of the project. So that's it for now. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time for another training session in Microvellum Toolbox.